Shingose Mubo, you have been in the village now for the better part of the day. You got here in the wee hours of the morning, like just before sunrise.
Considering the menagerie I take care of, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Working on very little sleep. In fact, it is now midday, and this is the first chance you've had to even sit down and gather food, because it's rather interesting to find lodging for your menagerie in a town that is not equipped to handle much more than horses.
I'm probably doing this whole scroll over here absent-mindedly and barely getting the food in my mouth, if that's the case, because lack of sleep.
Make a perception check.
Sure thing.
If we're going to approach him, I want to be as courteous as I use my courtier to do not recognize your mind if you tell me more about it.
Well,
I don't think you and I are very good match. 'Cause
13.
You're very courteous and I'm very in your face.
that makes y'all a great match, actually.
Yes.
13?
If it's raw perception, 13. If it's investigation, I can throw 2 more
No,
dice.
it's just raw perception. A curious duo is approaching your table.
We're not quite dynamic yet.
One is a young unicorn who looks like she's probably not set foot out of the same village since the day she was born.
I'm a country bumpkin.
And the other is a crane, the stark white hair, so on and so forth. But I wish I could tell you, wearing a mask that covers the bottom half of his face.
He glances up and down repeatedly, but by the time he actually takes notice mentally of the mask instead of this long list of heraldry on the scroll directly in front of him, you just see him kind of drop his chopsticks and look directly at you. Can I help you? Given that you both are obviously...
Make a courtier check. Go for it.
You keep one. Where's the food? Here's the food. Yeah, we'll go out. Keep 1, 6.
Okay. Do you have etiquette?
I do.
Make an etiquette check. Go ahead.
Excuse the interruption.
Fooling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But,
Always.
I noticed. I do not recognize. Oh no! Here, speak of said devil.
Would you like to keep that 10, or do you want to just throw it away and have a 4?
Has he heard the?
Oh, I should tell you. For those of you folks at home, who, in case I haven't mentioned this, the fooling die works like this because it's changed since you played.
Oh, then yes, I kind of need to know.
Okay.
Pay attention, y'all.
No, they know. They know. The fooling
So
die
this
works
is why
like
I was
this, and so you guys will know as well. The fooling die, the die here that has the fooling emblem on it, if you roll a 10, you can keep that 10. It explodes, whatever else. It does everything that it normally does. But this is, in some way, some dark force is helping you, even though you don't know it. It's something influencing what you're doing. If you keep that 10, it's not a question of if something bad will happen to you. It is a question of when. However, if you...
I think I'm kind of obligated just to start this off strong.
Well, not necessarily. But if you throw away that die and don't use it, then all is fine. But you have the choice of whether or not you're going to use that 10. For the record, this means you either...
Suddenly all the whispers of everybody else.
So you're at a... You have a... what is-
4.
It's a 4 keep... No, you're a...
It's a 3 keep 2.
3 keep 2. So you can either have a 4, or you can have a 12 and...
Go from
and
there.
more.
Push the red button.
Now I'm going to push the red button.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun.
So you have a 12.
I'm doing this more for y'all, and because Judy wouldn't let me live with myself. And there's thematic reasons for this too. 19.
19. All right. So, go ahead.
Forgive the interruption, but I noticed the 2 colors and your mind are quite striking. Could you inform me more about them? It's quite interesting.
I am but a humble servant of the Owl clan. You're, given that I've gotten several strange looks and folks who haven't deigned to ask, We are fairly young as it stands. Newly established, as it were. Myself and my traveling companion, who presumably is off on her own right now, are probably the only two owl you will see here.
There are quite many new faces in town for the tournament.
Indeed.
It is good to make new acquaintances. He is very calm, very low voiced in
Right.
everything.
And Mubo winds up. He doesn't quite rise because there's enough clutter that he'd probably bump the table and be really awkward. So instead, he's doing the slightly less awkward half bow where he's
While
sitting.
they're talking, make a perception
I am Shingose Mubo.
And reveal a hundo. Sorry, excuse me. Hard on. Player fault. Capita review.
And your companion?
I have no etiquette.
I will allow her to introduce herself. I
Okay.
can't quite remember the name off the top of my head. I know.
This is where making lists and notes is helpful, especially when we flip everything and get adult names.
I am Saya from the Unicorn Clan. This is the first time I've been out of my village, and I'm just amazed. Like,
He has so many scrolls in front of him with so many different mon and crests and seals on it. You don't know if he is diligently studying for the test or if he is the biggest nerd you have seen since you've left the dojo.
so what's going on with all the scrolls?
I have heard heraldry takes particular importance in the testing, and let's just say me and scrolls don't get along.
Studying and preparing is what we all must be doing, because this is a grave test.
And I'd not left much time given the animals in my care, thus trying to steal a moment of food at the same time.
You are an animal lover.
Yes. What kind of animals do you have?
There is a falcon and a old hunting hound in my care, and should I not utterly embarrass myself and my clan, I have hopes that I will be given care of a small owlet.
How do I go about getting an animal? 'Cause
Are you asking me or are you asking him? By me, are you asking the GM or are you asking...
Yeah, that is an appropriate question. Which one are you directing that to?
both.
Okay, well, if you're asking the GM,
Do I have to wait till I'm an adult?
no, actually, you probably could have purchased one. So, like, you talk about wanting a house cat or something like that, similar. A lynx. You can buy a house cat.
Okay, fine.
Lynx might have to wait till you're an adult.
You can call it a lynx.
Fine. Well, the day's still going. So,
Alright, so flipping over to the character side.
Can you then?
In my case, I've cared for both of these when they were injured, and their former caretakers were not sanguine about their recovery. But I was young, and, well, if you've had any younger brothers or sisters or cousins, we're not always the easiest ones to persuade, are we? As for the owlet, I have earned my own money to acquire it, but because it is an owlet, I must prove myself worthy of the honor despite any of such monetary acquisitions.
And how would you do that? By participating in the tournament.
If I am successful in my attempt at this Genpuku ceremony, I hope it will be enough.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if this is okay. We were thinking about checking in, then we were going to go check out the dueling place just to get a lay of the land. That's kind of like studying.
I find studying people tends to be better than studying scrolls. Allow me to clean up my things while you check in, and I will join you before you leave.
Wonderful.
So, both of you manage to make arrangements for lodging so that you'll both be staying here. There's not much in the hopefuls for the test are often given free lodging at the Laughing Carp for the duration of their stay. So, not much to say in regards to that. It's just a few moments later that you are able to go ahead and make your way to meeting together to head in the general direction of the Kakata Dueling Academy. So, all together, and that's where
Once
we're...
I've popped all those scrolls back carefully into their containers and carefully back upstairs, because we'll have to return them carefully back to the Owl Lands, I'm sure.
I was say I just grab them all up and dump them in your room.
All right, so you are headed towards the Kakata Dueling Academy. Your companion seems a little ill at ease at this idea.
This one?
This one.
Okay.
Your crane, who is of the Kakata family, so why in the world he feels ill at ease about going to the Kakata Dueling Academy is probably beyond you, but...
He's straightening and...
Aside from the mask, does he have any other identifying things of what I know, Sealy, but have no clue why Sealy? Or is that grounds for an investigation check?
No, but are you actively looking for something odd about him, or...
I'm kind of doing as much studying of them along the way as I am of anyone in the crowd.
Make an awareness check. You have no calls to investigate it yet.
Okay.
I was saying, being the typical country bumpkin, looking at everything with my mouth open.
Well, I went to an investigator school, so I'm just kind of doing what I've been trained to do. I like that 10 better. That's a 17, though.
Okay.
23.
Rocks.
23.
And not a fooling rock.
So, what you see is, when you look at him and you kind of look him up and down, nothing out of the way. The style of his white hair, the way it's kept, gives you some indication that he probably has some Daidoji ancestry somewhere, which might even explain off the mask, because the Daidoji have been known to wear masks in very rare instances. It's not unheard of. But...
So right now it's just coming across as an affectation that still was one attention-grabbing affectation.
Perhaps, but there is this curious thing that when you study his mask, the pattern on it is feathers that come down to a curved arrow-like point, which is very unusual. And the same sort of pattern of feathers adorns his gloves and his hand wrappings.
I take note of that for later.
Okay.
Move on.
All right.
It's not really going to be something I'm going to badger him about yet.
It's just a curiosity. The Kakata Dueling Academy is the single most prominent structure in all of Tsuma. The dojo is where the Crane's most feared duelists are trained and learn their craft. It is a group of buildings and courtyards shared by linked roofs and covered paths. The compound itself is surrounded by a massive wall that serves as both protection from potential assault, but also for privacy from prying eyes of those who would wish to study Kakata's techniques without being admitted to the fine academy. Typically speaking, only the highest ranking of guests are actually permitted inside the walls of the academy. However, once the Topaz Championship begins, any hopeful, their sponsors, and other dignitaries are welcomed as honored guests of the Crane. Unfortunately,
That's tomorrow.
that's tomorrow. But curiously, there is a young woman adorned in garnet and black who is standing at the front door of the academy, just studying the walls and the doors and pretty much everything else. She has scarcely moved a muscle since you have started your approach and begun to see her, and you've seen her easily for the last 5 minutes. If you didn't know better, it's a statue that someone dressed in clothing or rigor mortis has set in, one or the other. You would know the closer you get that she is obviously of the Scorpion clan. And that your crane companion, once again, seems very uncomfortable. Make a perception check, both of you.
She's not wearing her. She doesn't have a mask yet.
Right.
Very beautiful face.
Mm.
Yeah, in your case, it's just a feeling die.
No!
But you have to keep.
Yeah.
Congratulations!
Roll it.
I'm not the only one with bad luck today.
19.
Oh!
You spoke too soon.
No, I'm still not the only one with bad luck. Now I just have 2 instances brewing.
Yes.
16.
Okay.
Fulang is lucky and wants to hate us all.
As your eyes dart back and forth between your sighing companion and this beautiful young lady who is standing outside the doors, and you see the affectations on his gauntlets and his mask, your eyes dart back and forth between the stylized scorpions adorning her clothing and the pointed feathers on his, and it occurs to you that the points at the end of the crane feathers on his could be highly stylized stingers of a scorpion's tail. Could be.
Well, he's uneasy. You kind of see Mubo's head just swiveling
No.
back and forth.
Yeah, it's just like, what?
And his unease is obvious enough that you're catching it.
Yeah.
And you're like the taking at everything. It's like,
Dude, what's up?
I will use sincerity as an approach. It is impressive, isn't it?
I'm assuming.
make an awareness check.
I back him up, actually, in his attempt.
Nice.
In a way, it's an attempt to ingratiate myself. Quite the marvel of engineering, isn't it?
She's got a 9.
And I say that based on somebody who has war engineering.
The voice behind you, you can tell there's more than one person. The voice behind you carries with it a certain degree of practice. Go ahead and make your sincerity check. Without rolling the fooling die, you also make a sincerity check. If you pass, he'll get a bonus.
Sweet. 16?
Okay. And there's the food.
8.
8.
So he rose and descended. He gave him his own minor plan in the servant, which
Practiced and uneasy.
has the union distinction
Do you have,
Courtier manipulation.
full support of the Imperial family.
well, do you have etiquette?
Yes.
Let's start with that.
Sure.
They gave the Monkey Clan token of Scorpion lands. So when the Scorpion
17.
Really uneasy.
and because of the Scorpion clan, basically
But
had
credit,
servant.
really
Really
practiced.
practiced. She hasn't turned around quite. She's assuming Scorpion just from that little practice. So.
Turn around.
Scorpion and an unwitting companion.
Yeah, kind of.
No one will
We are quite beside together.
She's using her courtier skills, which.
Okay.
So. 13. So she's just like most impressive. I've been here for quite some time, just studying the place where many champions or champions to be will meet. She just kind of turns. She's got that striking beauty, you know.
So when you turn, you are greeted by the sight of an owl clan. You recognize the outfit and so on. It's because there's plenty of light, nothing to hide it. A little darker in the inn, and he was sitting down. But a young owl clan samurai with clothing on that's so new I mean, it's obvious, not simply the newness of the clan. And you can tell that they didn't have clothing of the right. They had to make it for him for this. That's how new the clan is. They're probably about 6 years old, and this is the first time you have ever heard of an owl participating in the Topaz Championship. Then there is a unicorn, adorned, in clothing and whatnot, typical of a Shinjo, with all of the brashness and swagger and uncouthness of a moto. And then you have a crane who is curiously wearing a mask.
Scorpion's not yet.
To pause the scorpion. Give a feet. I'll mark it down.
Your bucket list has been made.
That's one.
She
What do they see when they look at you?
she is wearing she's wearing the kimono of her clan, which is by issue, but she's very much, she doesn't have her mask yet, but she's got that striking beauty of the scorpion, like that.
Did you actually take Dangerous Beauty?
Yeah, she's got the
Okay.
dangerous beauty, which is
And you can tell the mask won't hurt that at all.
no, and she has the mannerisms and the affectations of a courtier, and like her voice is kind of like that dulcet tones, but she moves like a bushi. So, just from her training and stuff.
She is a bit of a walking contradiction. She is very good at both, but has yet to excel at either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I already gave you the help I was going to give. And then she turned around. It's like,
I have not seen the greatness of this place in many a year. It's good to be back.
So, you had trained here. She lifts the eyebrow, just like her mother made her practice almost. She like,
No, I've trained elsewhere. As he rubs the mask.
I'm
It
sure
is an unexpected surprise to see your clan again. As he kind of turns and eases towards the door.
I'm sure there's a long story that goes to that. And perhaps a name as well?
Forgive. Name should best give. May I ask yours?
Bayushi Hiromu. Sorry.
Kakazari Rio. My companions.
it is a pleasure. I am Shingose Mubo.
And I'm Saya. I have no manners.
Point blank range.
She says that.
This is something maybe we could work with.
Manners can be taught, and those without them are sometimes a very good distraction.
I just bump her elbow. Give her the head.
You hear in the distance the clanking of a monk's kind of drum, alarm, chime. And you see brothers of Shinsei walking through, leading people to the temple. There are many ceremonies that take place during the test of the Topaz Champion, and they are apparently getting ready to have another one. They have services all throughout the day. They provide them in customs of the various clans because there are so many present and so on. And you just see this group and various people filing towards, frankly, the rather impressive temple that's in town.
Oh, Seely. Temple!
Yeah. She's actually heading towards the temple.
I must admit, I've been rather distracted before now. It might be nice to adhere to tradition.
I believe that as the doors are not open, I don't think we have access yet.
It's always wise not to enrage the coming of the spirits.
So you are all going to head towards the temple?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she is.
Okay.
We come to an agreement and she's just tagging along.
Sure, why not?
You are heading toward the Temple of the Seven Fortunes.